All right, we're live, and music is about perfect actually. So we're live. Welcome everyone to TableTalk, where we talk all things tabletop. I'm your host, Steve Outlet, with my co-host here, Blue Boy.
Hello, hello.
And we have, I think, a very exciting stream today to talk about, especially the picture we got here in the background, and as well. The next few weeks, we are going to have probably some guests on to chat about some interesting things.
Yeah, I'm excited.
So, I've mostly confirmed, but I'm not going to say when yet because, who knows, someone could fall out. So
yeah, I don't want to get hopes up and then make people like disappointed or even kind of like have those moments where it's like, ah, damn, kind of lied.
Yeah.
Or whatever. So many issues can come up. Better keep it like quiet until it's confirmed, like about to happen. It's a good policy to keep.
I've been busy with that and busy playing Baldur's Gate 3, as we're going to talk about a lot today. I haven't made a video since Monday, and I don't regret it because I spent literally all day yesterday getting ready to get footage for tomorrow's video. So
I'm excited to see that video. I was very happy to be like, oh, here's like a stream idea, and you're like, I'm making a video on that idea too. It's like, oh hell yeah, it's a good video.
It's gonna be a great video. But before we get into any of that, what's going on with you?
The same thing.
Yeah.
I didn't put out a video because of I had some problems with audio recording, so I'm gonna have to scrap it, and I get more chipping away more at my big iceberg content series that I'm working on. Gonna be working on that, recording that later. Probably not today, but got some proper research, flushing it out more, doing a lot of that productive stuff. But also playing a lot of Baldur's Gate 3. And then even better, I got my computer upgrade. Like, I'm on my new computer right now. And, oh my god, this game can look so nice when your computer can run it.
Yeah, I can't wait to do multiplayer now.
Yeah, same. Like, there's so much extra shit that I feel like will come up with multiplayer. I'm curious, like, how other stuff will affect. And also just having this game with how much variety there is, I feel like you could legitimately be like, all right, gang, let's actually like try our best to roleplay out a game. Yeah. Or just like let's play it like a D&D game and work through it.
That's fair. I've been, legitimately learning a lot about even TTRPGs going through going through the game and being like, man, I should start doing some stuff like this in my games.
Genuinely,
how the world is designed and all that. We'll get to all that here in a bit. It's so hard not to talk about it. But I kind of want to talk about some other minor news that's been going on. Right now is a really good time for the TTRPG space, honestly. I think... Have we had a stream since Gen Con?
No, because I think our last stream we did was last week, TableTalk.
Yeah, it was right before the Gen Con news really started coming out. Last time we chatted, it was right after the keynote, I believe, which is where we heard of Starfinder 2nd Edition and some news on the remaster. And then some news on the remaster came out over the weekend, which wasn't actually news per se. It was just them talking about the remaster and showing off some pages. I did a recap on the channel if you have not checked it out yet. And the remaster is looking good. It's looking like it's gonna be fixing a lot. The Witch is gonna be made a lot better, and Cleric too. Cleric doesn't need to invest in charisma anymore to get bonus heal spells. So now they're just generally good at healing, which is really cool, and can can make for some more cleric variety, which is honestly very, very good.
That is important now.
Also, Dimension 20 did another big game and brought in some other online personalities like Hank Green. If you're familiar with Hank Green, he does love really good like science chats and really good shorts on like various science facts and everything. Very good guy. He's been going through some cancer lately, but I think he's in remission currently.
Oh, that's good.
And so he did this big thing with Dimension 20, which is really cool. And yeah, also during Gen Con, Baldur's Gate. Yeah, because I don't even think Baldur's Gate was a thing. It was a thing. That Thursday, it came out, and we played a little bit beforehand. Now we played so much more. Actually, how many hours?
I'm looking at mine too. I'm double checking. I know for a fact my save file has more than 24 hours on it. 63 so far.
I'm scared to look at how many hours I've lost to this game. 79.
Jesus.
I've
also,
not
real
even
quick,
played anything in Act 3.
Damn. My doorbell just rang. And no one else is home. I'm gonna see who that was.
Interesting. Okay. And what do you mean, Dead Phoenix? Did you watch the right trailer? Oh, to what us Sade said. Okay. It looked like WoW over a decade ago. No. Yeah, I see. No, it looks way better than that. I played original WoW. It looks nothing like that. But yeah, so Baldur's Gate again is just, say what you want about Wizards of the Coast. Say what you want about the Dragons game. They keep doing things that keeps bringing TTRPGs to the forefront of like the public space. And it's good for TTRPGs because it just makes people more and more curious about it. Because there's going to be people who are going to play Baldur's Gate who are going to be looking at TTRPGs. They're like, man, this game is really fun. Let's check out, let's check out D&D maybe. And even if it doesn't, it is also making people who love D&D talk about it more. Many popular YouTubers that are now covering Baldur's Gate are talking about their own games and the personal things they've done. And that also is just going to generate that look into what people are going to find interesting in the space. Oh, will they look at anything besides 5e? You know, that's a genuinely good question. And it's like anything, right? There's always these waves of interest when it comes to TTRPGs. I mean, that's kind of the same thing for anything. But there'll be a very big amount of people looking into it, and then it will, it'll crash down and people will fall out of it and whatever. But the thing is that every time these waves come in, more and more people end up settling in TTRPGs. And whether they set up in 5e or not, the people who really genuinely like or will like TTRPGs are going to look at other games besides. And also, they're going to now get, exposed to the things that, that's going wrong with 5th edition, or the problems, or what have you. And the fact that many D&D content creators are now starting to shift over to Pathfinder, or at the very least are talking about Pathfinder in their D&D videos, we're probably going to see even more people interested in Pathfinder. It's just a really good time to be in the TTRPG space, and whether you like it or not, Dungeons and Dragons is doing a lot for the space, has brought a lot of people into this space that normally wouldn't have, and has allowed for even content creators to thrive in this kind of space. If you're on Twitter, or if you're familiar with that space, it has also been being emboldened by the number of people who are just enjoying TTRPGs. And with Paizo coming out with win after win while Odyssey keeps dropping the ball, it's becoming better even being a non-D&D content creator. It's still not the best currently. We still have people who, who aren't sure. There's still some pretty big YouTubers that are still kind of in their own way making Pathfinder look bad. And it's still like the best Pathfinder content creator is not even a quarter of the subs. Well, it's like half of the subs of the worst D&D content creator, Like, if you're talking about known people in the space, like, the best Pathfinder can manage is like 50k subs. And granted, excuse me, it's not, I'm not a Pathfinder content creator necessarily. I love Pathfinder and I make a lot of content on Pathfinder, and honestly it's what's made my channel what it is, but I am a TTRPG content creator first. And there's so much more I would like to do, but honestly, like, without doing D&D, Pathfinder is just the next best space. And even then, like, I'm looking at a max potential of around 20-30k subs, if we're being honest, until the space opens up more. Which it might not. We'll have to see. In any regard, it is definitely an interesting time, as that was not the case even when I started. When I started, Nonads was climbing up to 20k subs, and it wasn't really a big thing. There wasn't all these big reveals or what's, there wasn't the OLG nonsense. And now Pathfinder's just getting way more exposure than it did ever before. So it's definitely something where TTRPGs in general are doing better. New life is being breathed into them. Good.
Business is booming.
Yeah, for the most part. More than it ever has anyway before,
True.
There's still some issues. Lancer's been getting a lot more interest lately. I've been getting demanded Lancer content left and right, which I would love to do more of if those videos just performed a bit better.
I hope Lancer content starts doing better.
Yeah, me too. I'll still be making Lancer content, but it's definitely just at the pace where it's currently been, which is like maybe once a month I'll do a video, or once every 2 weeks. This last stretch has not necessarily been a lack of Lancer content as much as just there's been so much Pathfinder content coming out. Thanks, Obama, for the follow. So yeah, there's just a lot of goodness in the TTRPG space right now, and we just keep getting wins. It's crazy how much the TTRPG space just keeps getting win after win after win. Whether it was, Stranger Things, Critical Role, moving into like Dimension 20, moving into like the Rise of Pathfinder 2nd Edition, the D&D movie, and now we got Baldur's Gate 3, which is being touted as probably the best RPG in a decade.
It's definitely very quickly becoming my favorite CRPG, and mainly the fact that it is one of the few CRPGs that I'm really not getting burnt out of. So a lot of them I play for like a good chunk, and then I'm just like, I don't know, I don't want to finish this. And then this one, I'm like, nah, I'm here for the fucking long haul.
I have heard of Dragon's Bane. I haven't done anything with it for sure, but I have heard.
I have
of it.
not heard about it.
I met the developer from Free League Publishing at PaizoCon last year, actually.
Oh shit.
So I have heard of it. It hasn't come up on my radar yet as far as things I need to focus on, but I'm always happy for more cool games, and Free League Publishing does a lot of really good work in the space.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully it's good, because I don't know. I'm very curious what type of game it is. I have not heard about it, and just new games popping up in the scene I'm always into.
And nice living in Sweden. My family lives in Norway, so we're real close. My mom and sister actually went to Sweden recently, because my mom studied abroad in Sweden when she was going to college. So very cool. But yeah, so let's, I don't think we can hold back anymore. It's 20 minutes in.
No, I can't.
So let's talk about Baldur's Gate 3. And what you said, Alex, is exactly, I think, is the thing that makes Baldur's Gate 3 is there's literally so much discovery and so much, like, I love RPG games, but I always get burnt out when it starts feeling samey every single combat. Like, I played a good chunk of Persona 5 Royale, and when my PlayStation like crashed and I lost all my memory, I could not force myself to go back through like up to the point where I was like 50 hours in.
I like the Persona series. I personally, the only one I've found replayable was Persona 4, but that's only just because I like the story in the game and the characters enough that like I'd happily replay it. But yeah, no, it's just like I know the story. I played it. I don't need to do it again.
Yeah, and the combat is just genuinely not that exciting.
Nah, Persona versus like SNT combat is kind of night and day.
And I think one of my problems, like, as a gamer, is that I'm not someone who obsesses about, like, power gain. I don't care if my team is, like, super built well, or I don't care to, like, super optimize characters or whatever in games. I only ever care about the process of discovery. So when I've seen something already, it starts becoming old real fast. And there's many games out there like that, which is very sad. We've been playing Remnant 2. Remnant 2, absolutely amazing game. I really enjoy that game. But the main premise behind the game is do these dungeons but again. And there's not a lot of variety when it comes to like the random generation that some of the levels have. And it gets harder even though I genuinely like the game. But
it's really cool, but yeah, it's like not the same level because they're like it's endlessly replayable, and it's like yeah, but do I want to?
Well, it's like saying Diablo or Path of Exile are endlessly replayable. It's like, yeah, it's endlessly replayable if you don't mind doing the same content over and over and over again.
Yeah, true.
Because like, even though there's something to get, technically, a chance at better loot, chance at optimizing your character, the actual thing you're doing isn't changing a whole bunch. And to be fair, if you're someone who likes that kind of content, that's fine, completely. But even games like Kingmaker, Wrath of the Righteous, done by Outcat, were great games, thoroughly enjoyed them, but every combat started feeling the same pretty quick. And,
yeah.
And that's just because, there's not a lot of things different in each fight. But Baldur's Gate is different. because every fight you do is different in some form or fashion. You know, whether it's there's different ways of taking out enemies. Being able to push as a free action is the most big brain thing that's ever been brought to the CRPG space.
Legitimately, it is like, God, it is insane how fun the systems are. And I think it's the main thing of Larian is easily the fucking hot take here. Easily my favorite CRPG developer. I like Owlcat games. I think they're capable of some good stuff. But like a lot of the times there's like a lot of writing hiccups where I'm like, I don't like how that's written. Or I'm like, I'm not really getting sucked into the story right now. Because like I really like Wrath of the Righteous. I think it's a really fun game. None of it hooks me. And one of the main problems for me too, besides like just general story or character nitpicks, were like, I like a couple of the companions from Wrath of the Righteous. There's a good chunk where I'm just like, they exist. Or I'm not super vibing with them that hard. Fucking Regil is 10 out of 10 though. One of the best CRPG companions in any video games ever. Love him to death. But like Larian is consistently really good because like Divinity 2 was also fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
In the same reason of like combat variety is so fun, of like each encounter is so wildly different. You can usually tell when you're gearing up for a combat. Divinity 2 had it a lot harder of like, this looks like a battle arena, and then encounter, who could have guessed? Here they've actually been surprised me a bit more.
Yeah,
but like they're
sure.
so good at designing really interesting encounters where it feels like all of them have been considered for like how should we throw things at the player. And oh my god, also the fact it's full turn-based. I hate real-time strategy with pause. I can't stand that style of gameplay. I've tried to get into games like Pillars of Eternity and shit, or like even the older Baldur's Gate games. I cannot. I hate real-time strategy like CRPGs. They fuck with me real bad.
Yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things where I would rather just do turn-based. In all honesty, if the real time just doesn't feel like it's anything strategic, it feels like an auto battler sometimes. Then I rather just do turn-based. And to be fair, even though legitimately I don't like turn-based a lot of the time because it's just slow, Baldur's Gate again typically has pretty good healing turn-based, even if they're not afraid to throw 30 enemies at you in one encounter sometimes.
No, I've had there are 2 combat encounters I'm been thinking about when it comes to my favorite combat so far. Me clearing out the goblin camp was immensely fun. Also because I had Karlach in my party, so Frenzy Barbarian as a bonus action can pick up and throw people.
Yeah.
And so I'm just throwing goblins at each other. It's great fun. Or like, there's a lot of like high up areas they're going to. All right, jump up there, pick the goblin up, throw him down, like fall damage, and now my other party members can deal with them. And then also I had one in Act 2 where I was surrounded by like 20 shadow birds.
You touched the bird.
I touched the bird, and then it was so fun because I had my cleric in the party, so I just turned undead. And then that also destroyed undead. And it was like such a minor thing, but it was a perfect, this would have been really annoying if I didn't have a cleric right now.
Yeah.
And it was immediately like clicking of, these combats would so change if my party comp was different.
Yeah, and that's the thing is currently, or in my completed run, granted completed in the sense I got an ending.
You in fact had an ending.
I haven't seen everything in Act 2, and I haven't even touched Act 3 yet, but I had an ending. I was playing a Warlock, and I was playing Pact of the Chain, which is a Warlock type I always love to try, and am always disappointed with most of the time. Even in the TTRPG sometimes. Just because if the battles aren't, or the encounters, or even like what we're doing isn't more open and diverse, there's just not a lot you can do as a Warlock. It feels bad because it feels like, well, I got 2 spell slots and Eldritch Blast, and that's all I'm doing on my turn. In Baldur's Gate, I never feel bad playing a warlock. There's so much, and not only that, but the itemization is so good in the game that I never don't have something to do. But the way you can approach, the way I handled a lot of things, Alex and I were talking before we started today, and we were just saying like, wow, our runs were super different, like substantially different from each other, and not just on how we were doing encounters, but based on events that we did that changed the game, you know. And
it's so much to it that's like so dope.
And that's the thing, right? And that's what it all boils down to, is Baldur's Gate is the first CRPG game, in my opinion, that allows for a truly open way of doing most encounters. Now, you could also argue that, like, Divinity 2, you know, or Original Sin, or whichever one that was like that. And I could agree for the most part, but not nearly to the same as Baldur's Gate 3. Because of the narrative, there's a lot of times that you can get along with the enemies. Like, you can side with the bad people and just change the campaign altogether.
Yeah, I'm gonna do an evil campaign at some point. Like, I'm going to do a fully, like, probably have to have some hirelings in my party, but like, I'm gonna do 100%. Like, yeah, fuck it, I'll side with the villains. Yeah. I'm gonna, like, I want to see, like, not even, oh, I just side with the villains. Like, how far can I go? Can I, like, play the power-hungry villain? Like, can I usurp people? How much can I push this? Like, I want to do a, like, evil necromancer playthrough.
Yeah, and the theme for my warlock was deceptive. I sided with the villains until it came time to eliminate the bosses and help out the grove. And so, you know, I spoke to most of the enemies, and several of them I killed without anyone being suspicious of me whatsoever. It's the craziest thing to be able to run freely in the enemy base after killing some of the bosses with some tricky espionage. It was a blast. Were
they events where you're just like using stealth out of like dialogue options, or was it literal story prompted, like kill them sneakily?
No, it wasn't like a story option. It was like, I talked to them, and then I love the cantrip illusion you can get that just summons like a cat. It's really handy because it draws all the enemies to that space to investigate what's going on. You can destroy a bridge that one of the bosses can walk onto that way. I also took the Goblin Priestess, lured her near this edge, and then used the pushing Eldritch Blast to just knock her off the edge.
Nice.
I killed everyone, even the big boss goblin dude. Granted, the second he dies, it doesn't matter what's going on. Everyone hates you.
Yeah.
But up until he died, I managed to kill all of them without turning all the goblins against me.
I am playing specifically. I'm playing the Baldur's Gate version of a paladin I've actually played before. I have done when we were doing our big Out of the Abyss game, like our home games, years back. I played my paladin, Rogel, who is at least then he had the criminal background due to just how it all kind of works around. I changed it to the charlatan background, so I have a deceptive paladin. Very charismatic, but yeah, also very deceptive. And I've been doing some like kind of similar things. You know, there's certain lines where my character is like, nah, I'm not even gonna pretend I support this. And then there are moments where, like, because I'm branded, so I can lie and say I'm working with the villains. But on the other hand, I also can't. There's a really fucking cool encounter where I was planning an ambush with that weird fucking spider drow.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I was fully like Yeah, all right, man. It's me. Orders have gotten in. Did you not hear? Dang, our boss is gonna be really disappointed in you. The Absolute's real disappointed. He's like, no, I can't disappoint the Absolute. Here, take my lantern. I was like, thanks for the lantern. All right, Harper's moving.
Yeah. There was a fight where you had to fight this very powerful devil. And during the conversation with him, he was trapped in an area due to his contract. And so chatting with him, he's like getting ready to kill us, and I was like, hey, wait, maybe we can find it. Made some checks, and I made him kill all of his cohorts and his own displacer beast, and I almost made him kill himself. Because devils, when they die, they just go back to the hells, so it's not like a huge deal. But
Not really.
I almost made him kill himself, but he killed all his cohorts and his displacer beast. The displacer beast was legitimately sad because the other ones were devils. They were going back to the hells. The displacer beast was the displacer beast. But I made him kill it, and it took what would have been an incredibly difficult encounter and made it way easier to manage.
There are so many situations too where that comes up, which I think is one of the hallmarks of how this is a really cool like RPG, where you're getting in all these encounters and then you're like, oh, if we had a different like setup, if my party was different, if I made some different choices, this could have gone so much worse or better. Where you're immediately thinking of, I want to do this encounter from a different perspective. Because, like, the one I'm thinking of that I really am worried to do later, there is I'll say, I am being the nice guy. I'm doing some lying. However, I am a, like, full-on noble paladin who's always doing the right thing. So, you can be a perfect goody two-shoes. The game, like, fully allows you. It also allows you to be a despicable piece of shit, but, you know.
Yeah.
There's a lot of mean options where you're like,
my character really was riding the line. He cared and was nice most of the time, but he was also not above doing really shitty things to get the job done. So
yeah, there's one enemy. In fact, there's an achievement for doing this. There's a big ass fucking colossus that's immune to most damage.
Yes.
And yeah, there's a method you're supposed to. It's an environmental fight. I was really lucky with the fact that my paladin was perfectly geared up to kill it. I had its weakness. I had my main very powerful melee weapon that I'm still using is a goofy ass warhammer that on a kill or crit just knocks everyone nearby prone. I don't think there's a save for it.
No,
they just go prone and it's fucking goofy. I beat the golem to death, and then I got an achievement for not using the environment. And I was like, oh, that's true. I could have, done something smart. No, instead, I just did a lot of smites, forced a lot of critical hits, and kind of soloed it. Well, the rest of my party was like, 7 damage, 5 damage. And then my cleric was just anxiously healing everyone whenever they could. And it's like those encounters where you're like, oh my god, I lucked out. This could have gone so much worse. I want to fight this again. That's the part that's been hitting me, is like, I love, like, even Divinity Original Sin 2. I fucking adore that game. That was my favorite CRPG until this game dropped. I have not replayed Divinity 2 that much. I want to replay
the area is way too much in Original Sin 2.
I played the first area a lot.
I've never played the whole thing more than once.
Yeah, but like I wouldn't want to, because like early game Divinity 2 is kind of rough, especially because some of the difficulty shit once you get to the second area. But I think this is the first one where I'm truly like, the moment I finish this game, I'm starting a new one.
Yeah.
Honestly, I even origin characters. I want to play as the origin characters too, kinda. I want to do a Gale campaign. I want to do a fucking Karlach campaign.
And Dead Phoenix, what you're saying as well, whoa, you've gone too far. If you play the Dark Urge, you have a lot of those. You could be eviler than the evil bad guys if you really want to in this game.
there is a line that I saw because Devin's doing the Dark Urge as his.
Dark Urge.
Yeah, he decided to do it as his first solo game. There's a line in there that I think sets the tone of the Dark Urge, where you meet a little companion who's like, "I finally found you," and like after some dialogue, I just was like playing my own Baldur's Gate. I heard it from his stream. Oh, right away, sir. We'll get necrophilia right back on the menu. It's like, oh, god damn it. Okay. Yeah, there's some line crossing.
Origin characters are the narrative, like, canonical characters. They're the ones who are designed for the campaign, and they have background and narrative bits tied into the story.
Yeah, and a lot of them, I say, are really cool. Like, the actual main characters are so interesting. I love all the companions.
I like most of them. Some on my nerves, like Lae'zel.
Lae'zel, I feel like I'll enjoy once I actually travel with her more and have a game where I will actually be making decisions that she enjoys. But like, yeah. I knew for a fact she would not like my goody two shoes. But apparently, you can actually influence some party members into becoming better, so then they'll side with you more. You can make Lae'zel a better person.
Yeah, I've heard Lae'zel is the most flexible when it comes to that, and can be completely unrecognizable from when you first meet her. So
that's what I've heard, which is like, okay, I want to do a game where I actually run with her in the group, because right now I have Gale, Shadowheart, and Karlach are all in my squad, and I am perfectly set up as like the good guy squad. Also Will. It was a really hard pick not bringing Will, but I needed another character with high HP and high damage output.
Karlach's also just the best.
Karlach, she's so cool. She's like really such a fun character. All her interactions are great. I was really happy to find out she was as nice of a person as she was. I was like, oh, thank God. I was worried because, Will was hyping her up a little bit.
Right. She is chaotic good, though.
Oh, so, yeah, chaotic good.
She also, like, she loves scamp characters. She has a soft spot for any, like, little thief characters that you might run into.
Yeah, the conversation she had with the little tiefling thief was so fun.
Yeah, so very interesting. A lot of the characters are really good, but let's start talking about how this translates to TTRPGs, because we've just been gushing for about 20 minutes about how great Baldur's Gate is. But how does this translate, right? And there's some aspects that do and do not translate well. The first of which is Baldur's Gate 3 is a game that you can look around, see things, move freely in, and that is unparalleled at the table. Because your GM, unless they're building whole model cities for you to go around into, which I think I've heard of some games that are like that, just can't offer that. They can't offer the same level of visual aid. And so when it comes to like discovery elements, you can't really do that in TTRPGs as much. The player themselves has to think about where something might be so that they know where to look. If you played any of those old text-based RPG games, which can be super fun, Caves of Cud is a really good example of like that style. You won't know something is there until you look for it, pretty much, because the game has to tell you what's there and what's not there. And so if you're a very inquisitive person, if you're a person who has good imagination, that's really good. Baldur's Gate does it for you. You don't have to necessarily be... And granted, there are still people who are like, oh, well, I didn't even see that side time. I didn't honestly even look, But the thing is like... I played a lot of tabletop. There's a lot of times I'm like, I've hidden this little secret back area the players can find, and they never find it. Because they never thought to look around.
Yeah, exactly. I think genuinely one of the things that would be so fun is to do a multiplayer game and then like have the self-imposed rule of like let's treat this like a campaign. I think genuinely out there, if like you have a situation in your friend group where you're like, damn guys, I really want to have us get together and play like tabletop, but no one wants to rise to the challenge to be a DM. Nobody wants to like make a campaign like that. I feel like you could just legitimately be like, all right, every Monday we meet for Baldur's Gate 3 night, and you just whittle away at that and like play it out like you're playing a campaign. I think you could do that really effectively, and it'd be really fun.
Yeah, I think there's still some issues for sure with
Oh,
it,
obviously,
but
it'd be very
I
self-imposed. Like you have to like be very strong in that theme, which it's a video game,
yeah.
they're different mediums. But I feel like for people who do not have the access to people who want to run D&D or even like that, this is finally a version where I'm like, you really like D&D, you should pick this game up. I think this is kind of what it is at its peak. Get super immersed, there's a lot of freedom in it. You can kind of do whatever you want. It feels like almost the idea in your head when someone describes to you why they like D&D.
Yeah. Yeah, this is exactly that. This whole adventure is exactly like that. And that's the thing that like that's what you can start taking away from is that what Baldur's Gate does really well is it allows player agency to do whatever they want to do when it comes to the story. Uh, Sometimes not well, admittedly, but sometimes like pretty good. Like recently in my second game that I'm running, mostly to get footage, but also just because I was like, man, I really want to try a new build. I really want to try.
And actually experience Act 3.
And also, I don't want to fuck up Act 2 as much as I did.
Yeah.
Which I did
appreciate the
because I was
warning
like,
you gave
I'll
me.
stick with the story. I want to stick with the story. Well, again, a lot of it was genuinely not my fault.
Now, some of that stuff is pure dice roll that you went with and didn't
dice
save
roll
skill.
or just like not knowing the repercussions of an action, having no like foreknowledge. So, which is tabletop, which is the point. But you know,
Yeah, actually, I saw that tweet too, Dead Phoenix. Here's all the changes you should do to 5e to make it more like Baldur's Gate 3. You've described 4th edition D&D. You all hated 4th edition.
Well, and that was the thing, right? Is like 4th edition. I played 4th edition when it came out. It just felt very limiting, and it did a lot of good things. It did a lot of like really well designed things, but the problem was that it took out a lot of choice and it over like balanced everything, so that everything was just like, what is your character role, and then everything else was flavor. There was no real choices to be made. But it's one of those things where you start seeing in Baldur's Gate where you can add things. You can add things for your game that you can translate well, like encounter types, making encounters interesting. Hell, just the aspect of terrain considerations they do in Baldur's Gate 3 would make most people's tabletop 100% better. Because the reason why tabletop can be really unfun and super repetitive is because every battle is a flat map with nothing to run on, nothing to push enemies off of, no ways to use the environments. It's you're in a room, you're doing a dungeon crawl. Look, doing 3D is a bitch, but you can do 2D 3D, which is you can have sections of the map that are considered elevated while other parts of the map are not, base level. It's really easy to do stuff like that, like rafters and everything like that. And it's not even that. There are genuinely lots of times where it's like you're on like a twisty narrow path with like pits on the side, or the enemy encounters are genuinely interesting. Hell, there's one encounter that you run into a bugbear and an ogress getting it on in a barn.
Yeah.
And then she tries to murder you for ruining her smash. Those are the encounters that make tabletop fun. And the fact that a video game perfectly recaptures that is amazing.
The fucking humor I've encountered in Baldur's Gate 3 is fantastic. There are so many like D&D moments almost.
Exactly. The game knows what it is.
It's so, God, it's so true to it. You know, and then also, funnily enough, one of the things that is also hidden is this game is so fucking horny sometimes.
It is. It's very, very horny. Too horny sometimes.
Yeah, I found a tweet that's probably a joke tweet, but I think also just kind of underlies the thing. Which also, I mean, it appeals to a pretty vast audience for D&D, because I see them on Twitter. But the director, I saw him respond to a joke tweet where someone was saying, like, oh my god, why is my party in this game so fucking horny? I could be talking to some of them about, like, tax law in Baldur's Gate, and within 2 lines of dialogue, they've already found a way to say they want to fuck me. Yeah. And then the director of the game was like, that's just Parisian dating for you. So I guess, like, who knows? But it's, because I think he is French, the guy who made it, and I think Larian is a French studio.
I think so.
But primarily, like, it knows what it is. This is the perfect D&D game that captures the D&D vibe. And, like, I hope one day Pathfinder gets a game this quality. I doubt it, but I can dream.
Yeah. I mean, I think so. I think Pathfinder will get something similar in the future, especially after how good Baldur's Gate is. I think a lot of companies are gonna want to capture that lightning in the bottle. Whether they can do it as well, it's hard to say. But I think if Larian was proposed by Paizo to do a game, they would probably be rather tempted, because they genuinely love games. They've made all the games they have from a place of love. Because the thing is that they are an independent publisher. They don't have higher ups they have to answer to.
They are fully independent, yeah. Despite some attempts during the development of Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah. The only thing they worry about is licensing.
True.
And, you know, like, no company in their right mind would fuck with them when they make games like this. But, you know, we know Wizards of the Coast isn't in their right mind. But even then, they've maintained enough not anonymity. They maintained enough independence to make a game that they enjoy, you know. It was like Lionset Studio back in the day when they made the Fable games. Like, they just did things in the games because they thought it was fun. Whether you like the old Fable games or not, they had a lot of charm to them because they were obviously well loved. They are from Belgium.
Fable was a fun time. I'd not like Fable 3, but I don't think many people liked Fable 3.
I liked Fable 3 more than Fable 2.
Huh.
It's such a controversial opinion, but I think it's mostly just in multiplayer. You can't play another character in 2. You must play a pre-made merc in 2. In 3, you can play your actual character.
That's fair, I guess. All I know is I didn't play. I played 1 and 3, and I enjoyed 1, and 3 was the first Fable game I played, and I was like, this is kind of boring. I found the gameplay really, really boring. And then I figured out later, oh, one of the reasons these games have so much issues and like controversies because the guy who made these just lies about what the game is gonna have.
Yeah.
Apparently.
What was his name? Peter Molyneux?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
he was overly ambitious, to say the least. But I mean, still, but still, like, there's a lot of love and care put into those games, and the first one was by far the best, in my opinion, from a player perspective. They definitely tried to like balance and hone things more in the later versions, and that just kind of ruined the game. But
that's fair.
That's just what it is, and so I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of companies that are gonna want to do the same thing. We'll see how successful they are, but what we can take away from Baldur's Gate is immense. It's just like battle encounter design, making each encounter have a story to it to some degree, or be a statement on the region. For instance, in the first area, you can meet some cultists of the Absolutes, and it becomes an encounter when you're like, oh, we're actually not with the Absolute, and they're like, oh, fucking kill them, you know? There's just random, not random, but there's just like looters in a tomb, you know? Completely irrelevant to the area overall, but it's interesting because it leads you into a dungeon, essentially. A very small dungeon, but a dungeon nonetheless.
There's the first combat in the second act is one of the best tone setters in like setups for a region. It is so fucking cool. The immediately like, oh, this place does suck. Oh no. Like, and then the combat starts and you're like, this place is actually evil. Yeah, okay, the hype was worth it. I understand why everyone was telling me, yeah, try not to travel through there as much as possible. And I understand even more one of my favorite lines I've delivered so far in the game of when I was talking to the druid leader, and my character's like, I can't even believe I'm saying this, but it does sound like the Underdark is the safest option. And it's like, that is saying something. The Underdark sucks. Like, oh my god. Like, that is such a good point, actually, is your combats, I feel like, shouldn't just be the tool to whittle down your player's HP and resources. They should also exist to flavor an area, build up a story, start to get you thinking. Have combats that start by like, oh shit, like, these people are allied with this thing. We like said we weren't familiar, and then, oh shit. Or even those situations of like, hey, are you with the Absolute? And you're like, yes. And then that leads to a whole new thing.
And as well, do not put your big bads on a pedestal, you know? That's another thing to learn from the game, is many of the main villains of the first chapter you can kill with a simple shove. You get them in the right place at the right time, you can just be like, whoop, and off they go. And that's fun for players. People don't understand how like fun it is for players to kill the big bad, or not even the big bad, but like a minor boss with such a tactic. And to be fair, you can do that with most bosses in the game. It's pretty nutty.
It's so funny, and like that is also how you can tell that a game is free and open like this, because or even just the fact that this is a D&D game, because you can definitely have those moments like where those DMs going on Twitter and being like, so I built up this really cool villain, and then my party members did a funny combo, all got nat 20s, and now he's dead. It's been 2 turns, or even just like a single turn of combat. Right. I've had that. I had a fucking module I was running for my friends, like really early on when I was running 5e, and I built up, like, there's this wizard character in, like, I think it's Minds of Phandelver. Like, I was building him up, making him pretty interesting, and then someone did a trip attack on him, then someone guiding bolted, and then just like it basically turned into 6 party members surrounding this wizard that I buffed up for the increased party size, by the way, and then proceeded to curb stomp him to death.
Yeah.
And it was immediately like, fucking okay, guys. This is gonna be way longer, but I guess not. And it's moments like that. Everyone is having a fucking grand time, and yeah, sure, it didn't go the way you wanted, didn't go the way you planned. You might have had fun stuff, but when everyone at the table is fucking hollering at like, that worked, oh my god, it leads to like a really fun moment that everyone will talk about. And that's what matters. That's what you can do. So lean into those aspects.
It's important to make enemies not feel like they're unapproachable, you know? To make it where the enemies are people too. A lot of the times, in this game especially, the enemies are people too, and are victim to the same things that everyone else is victim to. It's like the Goblin Priestess, she's a very nice person, relatively speaking, you know.
Relatively.
She's a cultist, but like she tries breaking into your mind, and if you resist, she's like, yeah, you probably don't want to do such an intimate thing here out in the middle of nowhere or with everyone around. Let's go to the back. We'll do it in private for you, you know. And she's like, just let me take care of you, please. I can help you with all your problems if you just let me in. And, you know, like, if you side with the goblin, she's a supportive ally, you know. It's crazy how much just depth is added to the game, and that's something that can be done in your TTRPGs, because, okay, like, let's be honest, it's very hard to make some NPCs kind of memorable to your players.
True, it really is.
And it's just purely from the fact that, well, as the GM, you have to be the conduit in which you communicate to these imaginary characters. And if you're a GM who's not very good at voices, not very good at like changing dialogue or mannerisms, if you're not the kind of GM who can very easily make each character very distinct from another, it gets lost in the mind mush that is sometimes tabletop, where you don't even know really what's going on. And and a lot of that just comes to the writing for the characters, and as well it comes down to what those characters can do for the players. Because unless an NPC serves a purpose, it becomes twice as forgettable.
Yeah, or just not even accounting for like any motive you put. Sometimes your party your players will just attach themselves to a random character you gave like a throwaway name to.
Yeah, but see, that's the thing, right? That what happened was you accidentally made a memorable NPC.
Yeah.
It wasn't intentional. You're just like, this is the random puppeteer of the town's local show. Just as he got done, he comes at you with his Kermit puppet or whatever. Players are like, this guy's awesome. Like, I can visually see in my mind this guy using his puppets. And you just created a memorable NPC where you're just like, oh, I don't know, we'll just give him a random person with a random job, you know? Is the job was unique enough. And you describe just a feature that the players are going to remember, and bam, memorable NPC.
Yeah. God, there are so many currently reoccurring NPCs in Baldur's Gate where I'm like, it's you again, for better or for worse.
One of my like, for a long time, is one of my most memorable NPCs. He was called Mamachu Guy, and we were playing this game where a Mamachu was just this type of like, it was like a tobacco chew kind of thing, and he was heckling the rich NPC that everyone was traveling with, but he just was so memorable that everyone was just like, money bags! Or remember Mamachu guy? Just a memorable drug dealer one day. You know? Because he was very insistent. And apparently good at his job, because no one ever forgot him after that.
You need that. You need a person who can is that memorable if they're gonna have a job like that.
And I think another big thing that Baldur's Gate does as well is it offers you a variety of locales that you can go to, but it's all still relatively localized. A big problem with a lot of TTRPGs, and I'm very much guilty of this as well, is you start kind of world traveling, and each location just becomes like a postcard event rather than like being a memorable area to the players, because they just travel so often. You know, you don't create,
yeah, that's fair.
You don't create a sense of familiarity with locations, and thus the players just forget about it, or they don't even really like take in where they're currently at, because everything just seems very cheap. It's very like, well, we're just gonna be here for a day, a week, or whatever. Baldur's Gate 3 offers, in the first chapter, 3 whole player maps. 3, which is huge. And I don't even know. The second chapter might all just be one area. It might not. It's hard to tell sometimes when you move from one chapter to the next.
I only could tell that I was in another area because there was literally an achievement that told me I finished Act 1. And I was like, oh, I thought I finished it earlier when I went to the fucking Underdark. I guess not. All right.
Nope, that's just a part of the first chapter, technically. And that's the thing, right? Is creating locales that are memorable, giving you enough space. 3, maybe? I don't know. It's such a long game that people are still like getting towards the end, and no one wants to spoil, so no one really mentions a lot. You know?
I'm pretty sure. I think it's a safe bet to say 3, but because that's primarily what Larian does.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, 3 acts where we're like, we have no clue how actually long it is. There are people who already on Twitter I keep seeing say like, I just beat Baldur's Gate 3, and I'm like, how did you do that? It is like, there is not enough time in the day for me to play this.
Yeah, well, it's also people who skip dialogue, you know.
That too. But... and also, like, I am genuinely surprised. I have seen no story spoilers. I've only seen random, like, here's a fun interaction I had because of this, and I'm like, oh, okay. Or a joke tweet where people are like making fun of something, being like, this is such a D&D moment. I just had a sex scene where I had to make a skill check to top. It's like, yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. So just a brief recap for anyone who's keeping track. So it's map design, encounter design, making your encounters interesting. Give your players options on how to deal with encounters, whether it's socially, whether it's through espionage, whether it's just bashing down the front door. Make localization a big aspect. I'm very excited because we're going to be doing Kingmaker here really soon. And all of Kingmaker takes place in the Broken Lands area, and specifically the Forgotten Lands. I think the Forgotten Lands and the Broken Lands. I'm having trouble remembering at this moment, but it's like just one kind of localized area that is mostly wilderness. And I can't wait to start feeling familiar with the area. Stolen Lands, that's what it is. Thank you, journalist. Because that's like the big problem is like, even I struggle with this to some degree because it feels unreasonable to have everything happening within like a 10-mile radius, right? It feels unreasonable that there's just so many events going on. But that's the thing. Scale your events. There's so much happening in the first area, and a lot of the time, it's just a super small event irrelevant to the story overall. Saving a small tiefling from some harpies is important to the Grove, but you could literally skip that event and not know anything different by continuing on. I didn't, until I realized that I could duck under a pillar and walk further in the area in the Grove, you know. There's literally a small village being watched over by goblins that has no story relevance. It just has a encounter with some ogres that you can talk to, an ogre that has a band of intellect, which is hilarious. I love
it's
that.
So funny. I love him.
You can the bugbear ogress scene we mentioned before. You can find an ex-Thay necromancer's laboratory in this town, which is alluded to from other parts of the map. You actually could get information on this weird shipment to this town, you know, for some wizard dude or something. And you can also find a blacksmith that's placed near a possible entrance to the Underdark that you can make unique weapons at. All of these are really, really interesting, but not relevant to the actual main narrative. And it's up to the players to kind of like figure that stuff out. And the game does really well at pointing you in that direction. You can fight the goblins in that area, and you can see some calcified webs over an area that drops you down to the basement with the blacksmith stuff, if you're curious enough to go down through that. You get mentions of shipments to an inn in this town on various points across the map that can lead you to believe something suspicious is going on in that inn.
This is like one of the few RPGs where I'm actually fucking reading notes and books.
Sometimes it's important. Also, I love how Larian, if it's something of relevance, as long as you open the book, your character will remember that later.
Thankfully, that saved my ass in the Arcane Tower.
Same.
In the Underdark, yeah. Read those books in that tower. Yeah, it saves you some time. Yeah, there's some fun stuff hidden in there. Oh god, it's like the fucking absolute struggle of not being like, I want to start my second campaign right now, and it's like, I know.
It's kind of one of the reasons why I'm eager for the multiplayer, because I'm just like,
yeah,
give me a reason to try something else.
Yeah, let's try something different. Let's see what like other options we have, because I feel like we can have some interesting takeaway stuff from having a wizard, a monk, and a druid all in a squad. And also, I keep finding monk items in the game that look so fucking cool.
Yeah, I really want to play a monk. In my current run, I'm playing a Eldritch Knights fighter.
Hey.
And it runs really. It feels so good because again, it's just
fighter
one of those.
Feels good.
What? Sorry.
Fighter feels good.
Fighter feels really good.
How?
Because of the extra like attacks you can get, and because things like expeditious retreat, you know, lasts until you lose concentration on the spell. It's really nice being a fighter that has an extra dash action.
That is fair.
And you can get wherever you want. I have Thunder Wave. And lots of times I've just thrown enemies off the map because Thunder Wave pushes enemies ridiculously far away. The fact that I can jump really well because I have a character who has really good strength and athletics. Actually really nice. also just being able to wear heavy armor, like, my god, no, I've never felt the armor like loss so much than playing the warlock and then moving to fighter and be like, oh, this is what AC feels like. Shit, no one ever hits me. That's crazy.
That's me right now with the paladin. Yeah, it's like, it's kind of goofy where I'm like, dog, nothing hits me, and then they get debuffed for hitting me.
Legitimately though, I'd have to go over it because I don't know why you wouldn't play a paladin over a fighter necessarily, because you can get all the fighter things and smite. So I'd have to play through them, but I had an idea for a character, and that's kind of like my approach to playing the game. Is I have a character in mind when I'm playing these games, and the better I can live that character out, the better it runs. And honestly, like playing a warlock, there's so many special dialogue options for warlocks, and for fighter, there's some good fighter ones as well, because they're just talking about like tactics and combat, and they know fighting, and sometimes that comes in real handy in some situations.
Paladin so far, I'll say, there are times where I've given the same option is just reiterated differently as a paladin, and your party will react to it differently because you're reacting from something on a different level. Because like paladin is just, I mean, paladin's also really strong in 5e. It's a good thing to just dip into. But one thing I noticed is my character is a vengeance paladin, and I'm hanging out with my goody two-shoes squad. Shadowheart maybe is not a full goody two-shoes, but she's been really nice to me, and I keep seeing people on Twitter say she's kind of rude. And I'm like, I don't see it. I don't know, man.
She can be prickly at times, is the way.
Yeah, prickly if you're like trying to learn all of her secrets, which I never did. I was always like, hey, I mean, you don't have to tell me anything. I don't actually care. I'm not your dad. I don't want to learn everything about you. But I can either reiterate something as I will protect these innocents out of goodness, will get party affinity, but me saying like the same thing as a vengeance paladin does not, because it's coming from a different angle almost of I made an oath and now I'm just going to kill you because you're a criminal, rather than I'm killing you because it's the right thing to do, is something I've noticed. But also, if you're making a promise as a paladin, people will listen to it a lot easier.
Ooh, that's actually kind of interesting.
There's a lot of on my honor, or like, I swear to you here and now that I will do this for you. I have a lot of situations where someone's like, I'm going to go out and try to save this person. And it's like, that is a really bad idea. I will do it. And they're like, no, I'll do it. It's like, hey, no, stop. This is my job. On my oath, I swear to you that this will be done. And they're like, okay, I understand. Because at least a paladin's word is pretty fucking massive.
True.
That's a big deal. They're literally like magically bound to not break those. Because you have to follow your oaths as a paladin, because if you don't, you'll turn into the secret paladin subclass of the Oathbreaker.
Oathbreaker, yeah.
Which looks really fun.
And yo, James, what's up? Yeah, paladin, I mean, unfortunately as it is, like I said, I legitimately don't know the reason to play an Eldritch Knight over a paladin, just because paladin hits harder, other than I would assume the utility offered by having a spell list that has a lot of utility spells in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I definitely use all those utility spells.
Well, but that's what I'm saying is the Eldritch Knight has access to some of the wizard spells, and the paladin does not. So that's
true.
That's the big thing, is what I'm thinking is the big difference, and I think makes a legitimate difference here in this game, is that utility actually means a lot more than it does in most games.
True. This is the first time, and you understand this. Long viewers of Table Talk will also understand the weight of what I'm about to say here. As a paladin, sometimes I cast spells.
Massive.
It's massive. Because, like, in a video game sense, I don't know, it just feels different. Granted, the only two spells I'm casting is Compel Duel and Divine Shield. Because 23 AC or make sure my squishy like wizard don't die by like staring at the boss. Is like, no, you fight me now. And I'm not using much else, but it's still helping.
Yeah.
And also Vengeance Paladin's just the best one. I mean, literally, Channel Divinity, now you have advantage on that enemy for an entire minute. Why the fuck wouldn't you take that?
Right.
That's so good.
For real. But yeah, so I mean, like, I feel like the Eldritch Knight, especially as I level up a little bit more and get some more higher level spells, there's just gonna be some things in there that I think are gonna be really good. I mean, being able to get a free dash action, essentially, already is pretty huge. I was having a conversation with someone not too long ago where we were talking about Pathfinder 2e and like what, like, in a game, why would you play Alchemist? Because Alchemist just feels bad. And I'm like, well, one, Alchemist can get really close to the other martials with just proper use of alchemical items. Who knew? And two, they can just do things that like the fighter can't in a lot of situations. And base move speed is massive because the fighter, right? What happens with fighter a lot of times is if they're fighting off like one of the ads in the fight, one of the mobs in the fight, they'll hit the enemy and kill it in like a single blow, and then they need to run to the next enemy, and you know, they spend turns walking, running. They overkill enemies, but just actually loses damage. The fighter's like advantage for damage because they're just doing too much damage. It's going to waste on enemies. And we have classes like the Alchemist that can throw their bombs at a distance, can give themselves a speed boost, can give their allies a speed boost. There's just not a lot of wasted times as an Alchemist compared to a fighter. So in some scenarios, an Alchemist can just do more for battle effectiveness than a fighter can, because the fighter just kills an enemy, runs over, or has to, you know, stow with an action, draw as an action, and fire for the third action with their ranged weapon, which might not be their preferred play style. Like, there's a lot of clunkiness, and Alchemist can just bypass a lot of that.
That's true. As much as I sometimes joke about Alchemist, I think it is a really cool design class. There's a lot of cool things it can do.
And that's just why you can't look at raw damage numbers as an indication of how good a class is, right? And that's kind of why when we're looking at Baldur's Gate 3 here, and we're talking about like why play a Paladin, or why play an Eldritch Knight over a Paladin, it's like, well, Paladin is really good in some situations, but you don't have access to some of these spells that you can use to do some of the things in the game. Like, for instance, getting to unique areas, bypassing certain challenges. Heck, even if it's just the ability to read minds on demand can be super helpful in a lot of situations.
Yeah.
And I also really like how Baldur's Gate just ignores spellcasting as far as making noise, which just shows how it should be in tabletop.
It's
honestly.
really obnoxious, like the whole noise thing.
Because it's like, when would I use friends? Because I'm talking to the big bad, and he's not just gonna let me sit there and cast a spell. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like spells should be subtle somewhat. And granted, in the higher difficulties, if an enemy is a particular type of enemy or particularly strong, they can recognize they're being influenced, but not always.
Yeah, at higher difficulties, like any charm spell you're casting on the person, they'll know. But like on normal and easy mode, you can just cast it for free. Devin's having some fun with the friend spell. Apparently it's just cracked. He is getting away with so much bullshit because he can just cast friends on anybody.
Also, the sleep spell is broken. 100%.
Is it?
Yeah, it just puts enemies to sleep and then you get instant critical them.
That's fair. I haven't found many uses of it. I just kind of killed them when they were awake, I guess.
No, man. Saddle Gale up with sleep and then look for opportunities to use it, because I guarantee it will make encounters so much easier. You can make enemies just skip their turn, and then when they're sleeping, any attack is an automatic crit.
I'll have to try it then.
It's really good, I promise. In fact, in our game, in our multiplayer, when I'm playing the wizard, I'll use sleep in fights. I'll let you guys go to town on enemies when they're sleeping, and
that'll be
the power.
That'll be very nice for me, as we haven't even gotten that far in as monk. It is a fucking high, and I keep finding magic items where I'm like, ooh boy, I want to use that. I want to use that. Oh my god, I can't wait. I don't even know what subclass of monk I'm gonna do, dog.
I'm probably gonna do Shadow Monk, honestly, when I get to it. Being able to teleport shadow to shadow, especially in Act 2. Huge.
Oh god, I want to do the other one is the big elemental one.
The elemental one does look pretty sick.
I always really liked that one because, I mean, fucking like Avatar shit, you know.
So I mean, like, obviously over the course of this chat, we've really talked about what can be added versus what was just good, and some things don't translate 100% over. Map exploration is just infinitely harder. Keeping NPCs with the party. Sometimes the GM just has so much to worry about, they can't remember that you have NPCs with them, which is something I'm very guilty of myself. It's just, sometimes you just like, forget them. They're not important in this encounter, because you're doing everything else. The fact that the GM has to be the whole computing machine that a game is run through is tough sometimes.
It is tough.
James Beck says, Way of 4 Elements eats up a ton of key points, though.
Yeah, but there are, from what I've seen, some items that help you get around that in the game. But it's understandable. I mean, you get access to a bunch of just key stuff. I'm fully basing it off of the one in 5e. But I like the variance of actions more. I like having a big toolbar of things that you can do. It's really helpful. It's one of the reasons I've been hoarding spell scrolls. I don't need all of them, but having just like a giant toolbar on my wizard of just pure spell scrolls means like I will just have an answer to like random things, or an opportunity will open up like, oh my god, I can try this thing. It's just, that's the kind of style I like. I like looking at it tactically and trying to figure out how can I possibly get an edge on this situation.
Yeah, well, it's also a Larian game.
Yeah.
Where literally you can be like, oh, I just happen to have a barrel of powder in my pocket. Let me throw this at the enemies and then use a fire ability on it.
That's true.
And cause an explosion. Or, I genuinely, water bottles are really good in the game because you can electrify enemies if you hit them and then hit them with an electric spell or ability.
That's true.
And there's a lot of electric weapons in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, Larian fixed 5e. I mean, most of it. There's still some class imbalances, I feel, but a lot of that is, funny enough, kind of how Pathfinder balances things, where they didn't feel the need to because they saw the utility in what it could add to the characters. So, like, for instance, playing a Warlock that's not Blade Lock. Actually good, because your utility is very useful in this game. I haven't even messed with Disguise Self, and I think in this game that's gonna be nuts. It's gonna be really good.
Disguise Self, I'm really curious to play around with it because there's the mask of like the mask from Divinity 2. If you like we did, we bought the game early.
Yeah.
And if you use the spell, it gives you an entire list of, all right, which race you want to be. And there's like so many options, and it's like, what can you use that for? I'm so curious utility. Sadly, like, I couldn't turn myself into a goblin, so I didn't use it that much for some stealth. But, did they actually say, like, no DLC for above level 12? That's actually sad. I thought for sure that they would be doing DLC packs and like, all right, yeah, this pack's gonna be like, we're gonna let you go up to level 16. This one's gonna let you go up to 20. I could have like sworn that that would be the method they go, but damn, guess not.
Well, they said they might not. They said it has some design challenges.
I can imagine it would have some issues, some high levels 5e spellcasting, and just a lot of like high level spells in general. Sometimes just kind of like figure it out, and it kind of works better in a more narrative like roleplay sense rather than like a hard coded video game.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
man,
that's
there's like
just
so
the
many
thing.
variables.
That's why I can't wait for a Pathfinder game, because they can totally go up to 20.
Oh,
because
easily.
The game is mostly designed balanced 100%. So I just
exactly.
Ivy should take a note from Lancer and just end at level 12 law. Yeah, it's funny enough. I was watching a video from Bob the World Builder recently, and he says, honestly, we prefer low-level D&D. We prefer like getting to games not much higher than like level 5 or 6 or something like that. And to me, that was like crazy, because I enjoy high power stuff. I enjoy high fantasy. I like the crazy stuff and everything like that. But I can definitely see the enjoyment that comes when the game doesn't start getting super broken. And a lot of the classes do feel a lot more balanced pretty early game compared to later when they can just get absolutely broken. So I can understand that sentiment. Whether that's a call out on on D&D's design flaws, or just they prefer not having a super high powered game, I don't know. But like, Larian made D&D genuinely feel good for everyone. I don't think there's a single class that feels bad to play, which is peak, which is really
That's
good.
what you want. Like, I can completely understand the idea for certain players of the why would I not pick the good option? But like, alternatively, and maybe this is me just firmly talking from the fact that I picked my favorite class to play my first campaign in, which is Paladin. Is my favorite class because of how fucking fun it feels and how good it is. But like, I picked that first, and now I'm like, yeah, I kind of do just want to try different classes out. I want to play different roles. I want to switch around my party, like have different characters in it. It's, I don't know. There's so many like changeable things where I feel like just if you play well enough, if you utilize your stuff, you can get around like meta builds or anything. And also just I see it a lot. I keep finding videos of like tips in 5e. It's like, here's some meta stuff, and it's like, I don't know, mate. You can kind of get by in 5e without like playing the top tier shit. It's not that complicated of a game.
Oh my god, that's always my thing when it comes to Pathfinder, is literally talking to people and they're just like, I don't know why you would play this. I don't know why you would not optimize your stats this way. You'll just never hit. Not understanding like encounter design or how stories are supposed to go. I've currently been crafting like a monk build. That monk mixed with spellcasting is genuinely really good in second edition because of the efficiency of flurry of blows and their high movement. Because you can grapple an enemy and use a spell attack on them at point blank range, and they're flat-footed to it because they're grabbed. So you can actually get over the spell attack difference somewhat doing that. And there's so many times where it's just like people don't understand, like, there's just more to the game than the raw numbers and like doing stats. Am I saying play a character who is like trying to push all their stats up? No, not necessarily. But if you don't start with an 18 in your in your key ability score, it's not the end of the world. And there's lots of ways you can get around the differences by utilizing your stats appropriately and playing the game intelligently. Flat-footed? No, that's off guard now, Lamau. Yeah, off guard. Which they have in Baldur's Gate. Funny enough.
They do, yeah, I noticed. They're gonna have to change it back.
Nah.
They wouldn't, no.
Not at this point. But, yeah, off guard. I'm gonna have to get used to that, for sure. Just for the sake of work. But...
yeah.
It's something where there's so many times people just don't understand what tabletop is. They treat it like a war game, they treat it like a number game, and it really isn't, because Michael Sayer had some great... I always refer to this tweet thread every time.
I think it's a good thread.
Just talking about how fighters' damage isn't comparable to the battle efficiency of like champion, right? Because the extra damage that fighter gets for having a +2 difference is negated by the champion's ability to just prevent damage. And the thing is that fighters can lose damage efficiency by overkilling. Champions cannot lose protection efficiency from preventing damage. Granted, it can be in a situation where, you know, like you didn't prevent the right attack and overall netted a more of a reduction in damage for the round. But if the enemy is doing average damage, your champion reaction is just 100% effective. Because you're negating the average damage the enemy is dealing. You know what I mean? So, there's also mobility. Lots of times, fighters, and to be fair, we changed some of these rules because they feel really clunky in my own games. But if a fighter wants to switch to a ranged weapons, it's 2 actions or 1 action if you don't mind dropping your weapon. Which feels kind of bad. And
dropping your weapons does feel bad.
And it was just like, you can't drop your weapon, pull out your bow, and run up on the enemy and then pull back to your weapon that you dropped a mile back, you know. There are some items and some abilities that can kind of counter this effect to some degree, but it doesn't feel good. So it's like a 2-action drop to make a ranged attack when, like, the monk can get up in their face and then be optimized based on their feats, right? The fighter might not be optimized for range damage necessarily. So you have to make that choice of whether you switch to a ranged weapon or you spend 1, 2, or even 3 actions trying to get to an enemy. So Baldur's Gate, I feel like, really benefits from this idea because there's a lot of enemy spreads. They're really far apart. And if you don't have that cunning action or that expeditious retreat bonus action dash, there's some turns you just don't do anything, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you get like a benefit for Eldritch Knight over Paladin, because Paladin can dump damage.
Oh, utterly and completely.
But there's times where you just are running to an enemy that the Eldritch Knight is already up, you know, working on for a round or two. And that's also like the spellcasters. They can't hit as hard as some of the marshals, but they can hit enemies from super far away, and so spend almost no turns doing nothing. So there's just a lot of situations where I understand. Don't get me wrong. I understand people who want to dump damage. It feels good. And legitimately, some people are like, it's fine if I spend a turn running up to an enemy, because I know next round I'm going to destroy that enemy and it's going to feel good, you know? And it doesn't feel good if I'm always attacking but for not a lot of damage, even if your damage percentage is high. it doesn't feel as impactful. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's the monk method. It's like, I love monk because I have the alternate view of, I do just like getting in there quicker and then whooping ass. But like, I don't like, because I don't like the act of not doing things. I always want to have one thing I can do on my turn that is like genuinely helped the situation. Even if it's not like doing damage, I do just want to like help or move something into position or get something set up. But like just running up, it's like, all right, hope nothing then it's just me for the entire round being like, please don't have anything change, please don't have anything change, I just stand still.
Yeah.
I'll at least say Baldur's Gate has fixed that problem for me in 5e, where it feels like there's genuinely something I can always do. There are so many uses of action and bonus action, and so many variant actions you can take, where it's like, I can always use my action and bonus action if I really want to.
Also, they fixed the yo-yo effect, which is super funny.
They did. Yeah, I'm not yo-yoing that much.
Yeah, it's harder to yo-yo. Granted, I was doing a fight against Knowles, and they were kicking my ass. But it was super funny. Every time Karlach would go down, she would get back up because I'd throw a potion at her or whatever.
Yeah.
And then she would push the boss like off of a small cliff. And then we could all like run away a little bit further away.
That sounds great.
So the yo-yo effect, if you're not familiar, in D&D is a phenomena where because healing is garbage, it's mostly held for when an ally goes down. Because you can heal them, they can then get back up and have their turn back. Pretty easy, you know. So it's called yo-yo because a lot of times I will go down, get some healing from someone else, come back up. Go down, get back up. But they get a turn every time they get back up. And there's no, like, dying levels. It sounds traumatic for characters. Right, but game. So, players don't, like... It's like damage, you know? Players can take a ton of damage, which should be technically traumatic for a character. But, you know, players are like, whew, my character is beat after that fight. Rather than my character, like, collapsing from pain or whatever. And so the yo-yo effect is just, it's a really bad design flaw in 5th edition that can make encounters, it can make DMs feel like it's really hard to make an encounter dangerous because there's so many effective at-range healing that can get someone up to get their turn before they go back down. And unless the DM is straight out trying to kill characters, which feels bad,
feels really bad.
There's no way to prevent player actions in that way.
Yeah.
So every fight is just like, as long as like not everyone goes down at once, we're fine. And considering that clerics can technically heal twice in a round with cure wounds and with healing word.
Yeah, because I'm really happy they didn't keep that one, like, I think it's a home rule of you can only cast one spell. Like, if you cast,
you can only
like,
use one slotted spell per round or whatever.
Yeah, I'm really happy they didn't, because having, like, cure wounds and healing word at the same time, it feels great.
Yeah. I mean, you burn
also,
through your spell slots
healing
like a motherfucker, but yeah.
It does. Healing feels so good. Like, even as a life cleric, like, I feel like even more than, because obviously it's a video game, they have like effects to make things punchier. But like, I genuinely feel like whenever Shadowheart heals the squad, it's like, oh my god, that did so much. Where I'm like, all right, max cure wounds, preserve life, divine action. And it's like, oh my god, my party's full healed now. That was like a full restore. Healing feels good in this game, and that's something I never...
feels like okay. It still feels...
I think mine feels pretty good.
Slot for slot, I mean, the Paladin's Land Hands is one of the best heals in the game, if you're using all your points. But,
I mean, true, but that is an action that you're not casting. Like, and I will say, I say this only because some of the reasons I have not had party wipes is purely because of Shadowheart's stupidly high healing output once I turned her into a life cleric. Like, holy shit. I have had so many moments where, like, a bunch of my party members went down. I got ambushed by a bunch of those, like, mephits, like the fire ones. And I was, like, literally fresh from the Colossus fight. I didn't rest because I didn't think there were a bunch of enemies, and there were 8 of them surrounding me. It was rough.
That's a rough fight.
It's so rough. Shadowheart kept it in line. She would not fall. She was at like 5 hit points for most of it, and she was preserving everything. I would have lost so quickly. And then I would have had to reload my save of before the Colossus fight. So I will happily put some respect on her name as a healer. And I had a lot of fun in that encounter of, like, just powering through with all the resources. And then, of course, immediately long resting after. But, you know. It was, like, it was a moment where it genuinely felt like I was hitting the fun of what a lot of healer, like, tabletop mains talk about, of, like, that anxiety of, like, oh my god, stay alive, fuck, no, you're down, oh god. Like, that kind of, like, rushing around the battlefield. Like, it felt really good.
It's hard not to feel powerful when you know the party's life lays in your hands for an encounter.
And that's what I'm feeling with this. And it's like, it's so much fun, and which is wild for me, because I personally don't like healer stuff. I don't like the gameplay of healers, because, like, I know tangibly I'm doing it, but I kind of like to have the big number. I like tanking, I like DPS stuff, that's like my preferred style. But it's so much fucking fun. I feel like I gotta have a healer of some form in my party.
Yeah. And that's fair. I like healing personally too. I'm a support main personally. Which is why I liked Warlock as much as it is, because it's so utility. It's crazy good.
That's a lot. I prefer, like, the Fiend style or Bladelock of, like, doing damage with it. However, I'm not on the support side. What I will do, I adore the debuff, like, Warlock style of I'm going to be a nightmare for every enemy on the battlefield. That is so much fun of just stacking on the debuffs, the conditions, just being like, yeah, every time you do this action, you'll take mental damage, haha. Like, just having those things and every enemy being like, this motherfucker.
Yeah, no, you know what's really annoying for the enemies when they're fighting my character is I'll drop like a Arms of Hadar, or the big area one.
Yeah.
And then I use the one invocation that turns you invisible when you're standing in darkness, and now they can't hit me. So they can't break my concentration on the spell. And that's just a battle. That's just a thing they're going to have to deal with now. And sometimes I need to take my character out of it if they have a lot of ranged. Like, there's one fight in the second chapter is annoying as heck because there's so many spellcasters and they keep breaking my concentration because they keep hitting me with like a bazillion spells. Not when I'm invisible though. So sometimes you need to not act in order to maintain a very helpful battle effect that is making your more core damagers do way better. Darkness is so good too because it just blocks line of sight.
I need to make use of those. It's like the kind of thing of this game's giving me respect for so many spells I kind of look down on in 5e.
Yeah, and that's because it's something that you don't think about, and the battlefields aren't orientated to necessarily let you take advantage of these kinds of things. You know, because it's just one of those things that makes Baldur's Gate like something we should be looking at with future tabletop sessions. What are you doing to make the battles interesting? What are you doing to allow the utility in the game to benefit not only outside of combat but inside of combat as well? You know, putting enemies in locations that would take a party member forever to get to normally makes something like Misty Step or something like Dimension Door and turns it really, really good in combat. Because like you get these weak rogue enemies up in the rafters shooting you, right? Well, now you can teleport up into the rafters, and that key advantage the enemies have over you is suddenly gone.
Completely.
And gaseous form, another good spell, because you get resistance to like most forms of damage in gaseous form if you need to go somewhere on the battlefield, you know. And it gives you flight too. Another thing where you can get someone to a very key location really easy without having to worry about them wading through a horde of enemies. In the second chapter, it's really important to have something like that, because there's a lot of enemies that will throw literal hordes of undead at you and keep summoning them forever, and you cannot easily break through them all unless you have lots of fireballs.
Which is you had. Your playstyle sounded really fun. I was like, stealth fireball like warlock run sounded like a great time.
It's so good. But you know, and not only that, but another thing I haven't mentioned yet. We're getting to the end of the stream here, but another thing that I haven't mentioned yet is Baldur's Gate respects who your character is. And this is not something that's done a lot in tabletop. But sometimes in Baldur's Gate, you can get advantage on a check just for being a class. You're a warlock. You're trying to convince this devil to kill his allies. You understand contracts, and you convince him because you're a warlock that you understand. You get advantage on the check. You need to break down this door. Well, you're a barbarian, so you get advantage on the check to break down the door as a barbarian, or advantage on checks to beat or to intimidate people who are currently like half beaten because you're a scary barbarian.
That actually leads me to ask: does warlock patrons pop up as your player character?
Not a ton. I've had one instance because my patron is the ancient old ones,
of course,
and there was an opportunity to kind of like pull one over on another god's ritual, and it gave me advantage on the check to do so, because like these upstart gods would show them what for.
Nice.
Which was fun. But no, not yet. I've heard there is some stuff in the game, and it might be more oriented towards the devil pack, and maybe
I can see
pack.
it since how like present devils are in this story.
Even
and I mean,
to some degree.
Yeah, that's true. But like, and to be fair, yeah, the old one doesn't lend itself to appearing very often, does it? You know, that's kind of their thing.
Narratively speaking, it also means you're not like. Most of the time, if you're an ancient old one style warlock, they don't even acknowledge your existence. You're stealing from their power. And I've been called a leech before for it, actually. So it's kind of a part of the effect. I'm not listening to some like super demanding entity like Will's character is, for instance.
Poor man.
Poor dude, for sure. But at the same time, I also just don't get a lot of those moments for it. So it's a trade-off. I think I like it personally, but I would like to see other warlocks and see if it changes at all for them or not. Because I definitely think it probably does.
I truly think, and I hope they do this, they need to add in some like Xanathar or like new DLC pack, here's a new story, and we're dropping like 1 to 2 new subclasses. I want a Hexblade Warlock because I think a sentient weapon will be so fucking fun to have like in this style of game.
Yeah.
I could just imagine like character dialogue is like half and half your character and like your sword talking about fighting. Or even having it like pitch in for certain stuff. That'd be like such a good time. I feel like that would just, it doesn't seem super complicated.
No.
And also I like Bloodlock. It's just, yeah, essentially what you'd have to do anyways to make all the other classes and subclasses like impactful, which is honestly one of the big reasons why I'm like so willing to play the game again, because based on what race and class you pick truly do impact how things can play out.
It does.
I was watching Devin as a bard get past an encounter I found really hard because he was making jokes at the entity.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then like he got through it, and then like you just being a bard, it was the fucking Fey Necromancer mirror.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was he had a bard option of like, oh, I've seen this one before, I wish for you to be free. And then the thing was like, that's not the right answer, but you're the only person who has ever said that. I guess I'll let you through.
That's nice. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's like, this is impactful. Like, because I picked mine, and the mirror called me a bitch.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I want
to.
Yeah, I want to protect the innocent, and then the mirror was like, pussy, and then like try to kill me.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, that's the thing is I think that's something that more tabletop needs to do, which is consider your players like classes and backgrounds for unique interactions. Because, well, sometimes I'm definitely not the kind of person who like investigator favorite class in Pathfinder 2nd edition, but not because I want to be an investigator character. I like how the investigator works. Also, thanks Osiris for the follow. I like what the class offers, and I like twisting the idea of how the class like mechanics work to make a character who's just really smart. You know, they're like a strategist or like a genius more than they are like an investigator, like Sherlock Holmes style character.
Yeah.
But I mean, even the GM can, of course, like account for that. I just, I think there's a lot of opportunities where I did this once before in Rise of the Runelords, where you meet that one merc, that one mercenary guy in the Goblin Stronghold, and Devin's they spied on him, and Devin's character rolled a warlord, and I was like, okay, yeah, this will give you an interesting insight into this character's feeling, because the character written in the book is conflicted. The job is not exactly what he thought it was, and his unrequited love is not quite being answered, and there's just a lot that's going wrong with this mission for him. And so with the warlord he rolled, I'm like, you've seen this face before many times. This is the face of a guy who's signed up to a contract that has gone south real quickly, and he's definitely thinking through his current actions, and that gave the party something to talk to him about that actually converted him to their side. And that was a very interesting use, and I think that the GM, all you have to do is just understand who your players are and who their characters are, and then you can offer in some situations where there might be a lack of guidance, or even where there's an interesting interaction where you can add something special for that character, and that feels good. And Baldur's Gate really grabs that, because of who or what your character is, you can have special options. And the origin characters, you can see their narratives play out through, you know, having them in your party. But if you play as that character, you get unique dialogue options that only that character gets access to. You can even change how their story turns out in the end from how it naturally does. And it's just unique. And that uniqueness, I think, is something that a lot of games are missing. Or are things that GMs don't consider a lot. And I mean, all this leads up to I'm making a video tomorrow based on Baldur's Gate 3. I'm going to be doing some recording today on the how to handle like one of the scenarios that comes up, and mention all the different like approaches, the things you can do, and how those kind of things can make tabletop better. And if you agree with some or all of what I have to say, I would highly, ask that you all share the video around, because I do think that this game that massive amounts of people are playing. Record-breaking amounts for games of its genre are playing. That means 100% there's TTRPG players who are playing the game and have a lot they can learn from it if they're looking for that information. So that's something I'm working on, and I can get your support. That'd be really good. And on top of that as well, we're gonna have some interesting guests on here soon, which I'm very excited for. And we're going to also be doing some other stuff in between now and when the remaster releases. And I think a little over in I think it's in October, if I'm not mistaken, or November. I can't remember when the remaster is supposed to drop. Sometime soon. Also, new classes are being revealed early September.
Hell yeah.
So this is not a channel you want to miss out on. I talk about pretty much everything that comes out. And if you are not yet, follow, subscribe, whatever platform you prefer. We talk every Thursday, 4 p.m., 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And as well, you can join our Discord linked in the description, where we have people forming games all the time, people talking about some interesting things. And we got a pretty tight-knit community going on down there. I'm very, very happy to see how close everyone's gotten in our Discord. It's really, really cool. But that's it from me. What about you, sir?
I have more of a series I've been working on for a bit coming out this Monday. Whittling away slowly but surely at that. As well, I got some just other big projects in the work that I'm excited. Got some ideas further down. I've been getting some help from some other 40k kind of people I've been kind of becoming acquainted with, and I have some new entries for it. This is going to shape easily into a much bigger project than I could have ever wanted or planned. So I'm very excited. I like stretching into a weird new style of content. So stay tuned to mine. If you like 40k, go check out Glue Boy. Other than that, just I'm on all cam stuff, so you'll see me around and kicking.
Yeah.
Other than that, I'm just gonna be playing Baldur's Gate. That's all I'm gonna be doing for the next days.
I at least have an excuse for a video.
You do?
I have some footage I can pick up, so.
I don't have any. I'm just playing it for fun.
It's ruining my life, yeah.
It's untold devastation on my life.
Trust me. I didn't release a video Wednesday because I was playing the game. Mostly to get ready for tomorrow's video. But still.
Yeah, I think this video will be so fucking sick. What Warhammer can learn from Baldur's Gate 3. Like, not much. There's, like, just me sitting there being like, you know, have a good video game type of IP,
have a good video
I guess.
Game, even though they've been coming out with some good ones lately.
Yeah, we're finally in an era where I can say truly there are more than 5 good Warhammer games. It's insane and unprecedented. And when Rogue Trader drops, I also probably won't be making content on that because it's not my style. And also Rogue Trader is going to be fine. I'm going to play it. I'm going to enjoy it, but it's not going to be as like good as Baldur's Gate 3. I feel like I'm going to have the same kind of fallout. I feel like I'm going to burn out of it like I did with Wrath of the Righteous.
Probably.
I feel that. I've played the early access. I've played the alpha and the beta. It's fine. Like the actual tabletop, like the 10th edition. Yeah, 10th edition's pretty sick.
I really need to start working on my Thousand Suns.
Yeah, it's true.
Sometime.
Yeah, 10th edition's actually good. It's the main thing is I do genuinely think that they should come out with some form of digital version of it. I think you could very easily make either a kill team or a virtual
Moonbreakers
version.
variant, because Moonbreakers is really good.
Yeah, because I mean that Moonbreakers is just kill team. That's literally the same thing you'd be doing as a kill team squad in Warhammer, and I feel like you could make a really cool style of game. Or you could literally just kind of do the magic route and have like a virtual version of your game for people who don't like to collect physical things and still make money off of them.
Fair. I agree.
Yeah, it's like you could just do that. And I'd play that. I'd pull my friends into it. I'd probably even do online competitive, like virtual Warhammer games, but you know, they make too much money off of minis.
But that's gonna be it for us. Thank you all so much for watching, and be on the lookout for videos and we probably will have a guest next week, so be on the lookout for that.
Hell yeah.
Anyway, good night.
Night.